This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
Glad to have you spending some of the day here with John Hicks, financial advisor and founder of J. Hagan Capital, and here to share his insight on ways that he would like for you to better prepare for your financial future. RetirementSolutionShow.com is where to start the conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. Of course, we have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there, or again, it's RetirementSolutionShow.com. Steve Jobs. When you say the name, well, first thing you think of is black turtleneck. I just immediately picked the picture.
Question. I was wondering if you were going to say that first. The black turtleneck and mock turtleneck.
That's the legacy you left
to me.
Steve.
Yes.
Forget about all the inventions and lives change or whatever. Black turtleneck.
Yes, that is synonymous with Steve Jobs.
Do you ever do that? Do you ever do the clothing thing, the uniform thing? I mean, because you, John Hicks, you're a busy person between being a small business owner and a husband and a father, all these things. Do you ever just do the thing where black turtleneck and jeans? I get it. I respect it. Like, focus on what's important.
I have a tremendous amount of quarter zips.
Got it.
So the summer for me is the worst because you
can't wear
relegated to polos because I'm not a t-shirt guy. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I always feel like I need some kind of a collar.
A little bit of a collar. It adds a little dressiness to even a casual
I think what it
shirt.
is there's a handful of times that I was growing up as a kid and I was in a place where I should have probably had a collar on and I wasn't, and I just felt so shamed.
And you got that.
Or I was
at
that place where you're walking through the casino and you're trying to get to the pool and everyone is dressed up and you're like, look,
I do not belong here.
I shouldn't be here. And so for whatever reason though, you can have the polo like no buttons buttoned. It can be whatever. It can be from Costco. It can be from the
Something
Dollar
about
Tree.
A collar.
It wouldn't make any difference. Something about a collar. So for me, quarter zips.
Got it.
3/4 of the year. I'm wearing one right now.
Wearing the quarter
I'm wearing
zip.
a quarter zip.
Got
Doesn't
it.
matter what color it is. Doesn't matter.
I'm
a quarter
with you.
Zip guy.
I would rather be dressed up, be overdressed than underdressed.
Yes.
Every single time.
Yes.
I guess when you're Steve Jobs and you basically run the world and do whatever you want to do, you can wear whatever you want to wear, and it's just
probably
fine.
really nice mock turtlenecks.
Right?
They're probably like really expensive.
I bet they weren't. I bet they were Costco turtlenecks.
Costco?
I bet.
They've Kirkland signature.
Somebody please look that up and find out. It's hard to believe. I didn't realize it's been 13 years since he passed away. Obviously, Apple co-founder. But one of his more famous quotes, reflection of his passing, he said, quote, "Being the richest man in the cemetery does not matter to me. Going to bed at night saying we've done something wonderful at Apple, that's what matters to me." And if you consider Apple's huge success, undeniably. Sure. I mean, absolutely. I look at my iPhone now, I've got, 3 or 4 old ones in the drawer. The world that is the Apple world that we live in. We can all agree he definitely left the legacy that he was hoping to. The idea of legacy planning, I think particularly like somebody like Steve Jobs, these people that are big people with big business, they lived big lives. Because the other thing that we've had conversations about, it's amazing to me how many people have lived big lives and they have no plan at all. Like the famous people, Prince and Aretha Franklin, it
happens all the time. And I think that, you can almost look at Steve Jobs and remember Apple. Remember, he was ousted by Apple at one point in time and he went and created Pixar. Pixar, right? If nothing else, it's like
that he created that.
Yes, everyone always forgets that. And I'm like, holy moly, no, like that plus DreamWorks plus Disney, it's all kind of intercombobulated now. But it's like, those are some of the best movies that my kids love. And
100%.
like that was also Steve Jobs once they kind of booted him for a while and then realized, hey, we can maybe put up with those turtlenecks. Because his vision was really kind of good. I mean, we wish he would get a different fashion sense, but if he's never going to be in the front of GQ, we might as well take his genius vision.
There it is.
No, but I think it happens all the time, right? And so I think that the line that he said, and I can't quote him on that, but I have talked about the richest person in the graveyard for years, mainly because there was a gentleman that I met years ago who literally was a maintenance guy in a cemetery. And he was worth millions of dollars. He never hardly made any money his whole life, but he saved it. He didn't overspend, and he was a millionaire. And he's the one that said, well, it doesn't good to be the richest person in the graveyard. And I just thought to myself, wow, that's genius.
A lot of perspective right there in one
and
conversation.
So obviously that phrase has been around for a lot longer than even I thought, because I didn't know that Jobs had even said that.
Yeah.
But how true is that, guys? Like if we know, or if we have a pretty good feeling that we've kind of won the initial game. Like if the whole point was, hey, we're going to save some money so that we can retire when we want, the way we want to. If we think about that and we've got ourselves where we're worth $5 or $6 or $7 or $8 million or more, I mean, chances are we've probably won that initial game. So the question is, what can we do to do better? Now, I'm not talking about make more money. I'm not talking about find a different job. I'm just saying, hey, should we spend a little bit more time with our family or friends? And some people are like, no, John, I do not need to hang out with my nieces.
You watch your mouth when you're talking to me.
I can't believe you'd even say that. What a terrible idea. I mean, as we're getting close to Thanksgiving here, I've already got to see them for a whole day. And some of them even stay around the house for a little longer. I can't believe you'd ever say that, you terrible human being. No, but there are so many things that many of us, if we're not focused on just making an extra dollar, what could we do? Could it be good, right? And it's not always just about being a giver. It's not about just giving to charity. There's just so much that so many of us have to offer. We've just kind of gone down a similar path, and it's like, well, I'm good at this, so I'm going to keep doing because I'm still good at it, right? So when you're thinking about the Steve Jobs thing, there's a lot of things that I think that people don't focus on that make a big difference. And, I think it was one of those things, Heather, I was talking to you recently about how many people, they're in their mid 60s or maybe even older, and they've done a great job.
Yeah.
They have not even updated a will. Some people I talk to don't even have a will, right? And I always, because it's such great reading, it's just really good, Saturday evening reading to read through like the Journal of Trust and Estate Planning.
Nothing says a great weekend like
the little light reading,
Yeah.
No, but these things all the time, like, Prince died intestate, which means he didn't have a will, but Pablo Picasso is another one of those. And of course, what happens to most artists' work once they pass away? Well, their artwork, fortunately or unfortunately, no matter how you look at it, is much, much more valuable, right? So unfortunately, Pablo Picasso died without having a will. And they said, and again, there's nothing written about this that I could find, but then there was hearsay.
Yeah.
It took 6 years and 18 different attorneys just so that the estate could be turned over to his son. Jeez. I mean, so, it's just some of it is
he had like a living son. That's the other thing.
Of course he did. A living son.
People think that it's just like, my kid's got it. It doesn't work that way, everybody.
It doesn't.
Pay attention.
And absolutely. In different states or different ways, so like if you talk to an attorney here, they'll tell you, hey, if you die and don't list your beneficiary in the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you'd have to talk to your own attorney about this, but here's what I understand.
Okay.
If you die and you do not list your spouse as beneficiary, then technically it goes 50% to your spouse, and then whatever the other 50% goes to your living children. So that means that the spouse may not inherit all of the money, and there are other states that I know that are even much more different than that.
So many people also have that one kid where they're just like,
without question. Yeah. So, these are one of those things that, as we're going through life, we're figuring out, sometimes it's not about getting more money or creating more money. It's about, hey, how do we make certain that what we have saved, that it goes where we want it to go, and it's going to be used, I'm not even going to say for good reasons. Hopefully, though, it's just not wasted, right?
Right.
Because there's a lot of things that I see. So if there's something that we can all kind of think about and learn, not necessarily completely from Steve Jobs, but understand that, in his situation, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Unfortunately, at least at this stage, there are no cures for that. That is, unfortunately, that ends one particular way, and you don't have a long time to try to correct that. And he had, at that point in time, nearly all of the money in the world. And that doesn't change anything, right? So I think he probably reflected a little bit differently. And again, I don't know a tremendous amount about Steve Jobs, but I do know, you don't need to have pancreatic cancer. You don't need to have a bad diagnosis to make some really good decisions.
Yeah.
So as we're thinking out there, here's a couple other ones, right?
Okay.
So number one, make sure you have a will.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be all special. It doesn't have to be expensive. You just need to make sure, hey, if something happens to me, here's where I want the money to go. And make certain that you're using a reputable lawyer that knows, yes, if you title it like that, it will do what you say you want it to do.
Quickly.
Because there's a lot of, yes.
Can we add at J. Hagan Capital, you have attorneys in-house?
Without question, yeah. So not only do we have tax attorneys, we have estate planning attorneys.
Yeah.
in office along with CPAs, because a lot of these things, we have clients that own property in Florida. Yeah. They own property in South Carolina. They own property all over the place. We have people that own condos in Mexico and Europe and the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And they all have different laws that work a little differently.
Right.
You know, one of the things we've been seeing recently is a lot of people own timeshares. Well, the question we keep hearing all the time is that, hold John, I kind of hate having this timeshare. I kind of wish I didn't have it. If my kids end up getting this, do they have to pay all those maintenance fees? Do you know, we only have a handful of attorneys that say that there's a way out of it. The other attorneys say, no. It's about the state law of which that contract was written. It's not always Kentucky.
Wow.
Matter of fact, most of the time it isn't.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they're kind of prohibitive. So those are things, right?
Yeah.
You realize that you may be giving your kids and grandkids something that you didn't even feel like you made a good decision on the front end, right? So it's important to kind of think about those wills and things like that. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Tax plans. Guys, this is a big one. Most people don't realize that they may be in a better tax situation than their kids. So think about this right now. And I had a client that came in the other week and we were talking about things, and we weren't at that phase. We were starting to talk about, not yet to the phase we were talking about estate planning. And he just said, John, here's my thing. My kids do really well, like a lot better than we ever did.
Yeah.
And we just started, I was like, well, this is great. This is perfect. So let's talk about this for a little bit. Should you give money to your grandkids? Should you, skip a generation, if you will, and help pay for their college or give them, what should we do? And what we found out is that his kids were basically both very successful in the highest tax bracket. And this gentleman had saved the majority of their money, if it wasn't in real estate, it was in their self-directed IRAs. And those IRAs, if it were to be inherited by those kids, basically 50% of it was going to be eaten up in taxes, because you have nearly a 40% marginal tax rate plus the state they lived in. Neither one of them still lived in Kentucky. 50% of that money was going to go away, was going to be gone. And as opposed to, this gentleman was in the lowest tax bracket. He was in the 12% tax bracket.
Okay.
So we talked about, hey, do we want to do tax planning for your beneficiaries? Basically, does it make more sense for you to start for you to either make conversions or to pull these dollars out at a much lower tax bracket so that your kids get to inherit it without any taxation?
Okay.
And he was just like, well, what could that save? In his situation, we were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that, frankly, if he used the money, he can use it. If he wanted to give it to the grandkids, he could. But if he didn't need to use it, didn't give it to the grandkids, his kids were going to end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars more of money, right? So tax plan is a big deal. Even if you think you're doing fine, even if you think you're not in a great high tax bracket, who's going to end up with the money? That's a big one. So those are the ones that I see often that I think can be easily remedied, but it requires an open and honest discussion with someone that, frankly, knows how to fix it.
And also can play a neutral party, because let's be honest, legacy planning, estate planning, it can feel stressful. Also, personal issues might come into play when it comes to family members and things of that nature. So knowing that there is a neutral place to come together at a table at the offices of J. Hagan Capital, it does exist. Don't be afraid of your estate and legacy plan. Take it by the horns. Own it, know that it is your legacy, and you do have some say and you do have some control in it when you have the proper plan in place. This is the kind of plan John and his team are here to help you figure out. Find us at retirementsolutionshow.com. Let's get to work figuring out your legacy and making sure that everything works out the way that you want it to. We also have links posted in the show notes, or again, it's retirementsolutionshow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 188279094.